Welcome to the Home Team Sacramento podcast. I'm Josh Takimoto, and with us today is the Christian Brothers volleyball coach and owner of Mindset Matters Coaching, Taylor Jacky. What's going on?
Nothing much. Another day alive. Always a good day.
Hey, that's a great way to start the podcast. I like that. I like that a lot. Now, before we even get started, let me ask you this: how many times do people flip your first and last name?
Oh my gosh, it's always a thing, and it's people on picture day when I was growing up as a young kid would always argue with me
Yeah.
when they'd ask, okay, what's last name? Jacky. No, your last name. Yes, it's Jacky. I promise my last name is Jacky. So, I mean, that's why a lot of people know me as TJ in the sports world, because I was so tired of the Jacky Taylor just always. So that's where that nickname came from. But can't wait to marry a man one day, and hopefully it won't be another first name, last name.
Oh
But
man,
yeah, it
that's
happens all the time. It still
oh, I,
happens.
I can imagine. And we don't need to go to those too long, but yeah, that would be, I guess, something to consider. Obviously, like love is a part of, finding a future husband, but obviously that last name is going to matter too. It could be the breaking point.
A little bit. It holds a little bit of weight. If they have a J last name too, I mean that has some big points. But I think all my close friends and families will always call me TJ. So that might just be a thing for the rest of my life. So
Hey, that makes sense. It does simplify things, and it does, like you said, prevent the confusion of the first and last name.
yeah.
When I hopped on here, I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, the one thing I can't do, I cannot do that. I cannot be the person that flips the name. So I really practiced on
Oh,
that. So I'm glad I got
I
it right.
appreciate you.
Yeah,
I
not a problem.
appreciate you so much. My favorite is emails too. When I email with people back and forth, and then by the fourth email they call me Jacky. I'm like, dang it, dude, come
Come on.
on.
At that point, it's just kind of laziness, right? It's like you weren't
I
focused.
know.
Yeah, you weren't
I know.
focused.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we could talk about names forever, but I'm not going to do that to you because you came on for a specific reason. So let's start here. Like we start off with all of our guests. Tell us a little
Mhm.
bit about your athletic and coaching background.
All right. Well, I was born and raised in Sacramento. So I attended River City High School, and I was a multi sport athlete there, and ironically played soccer for about 12 years until I decided that no longer, I did not have the love for that game anymore. And so I went full into volleyball, and was only played club for about 4 years until I went into college, which is kind of unheard of now because people are playing club and travel ball by 6 7 years old. So I started at 14 and really loved it, couldn't stop, and was very fortunate enough to have a scholarship for William Jessup University in Rockland, and played 4 years collegiately there. And while I was there, I was able to do USA volleyball pipeline performance playing. And so I was on the U21 national women's team. And then I went to the open tryout at the USA Olympic Center in Colorado Springs for 2 years during my sophomore and junior season, sophomore and junior senior season in college. So I did that too while I was playing in college.
That's awesome. That's very
Yeah.
cool. And before I move on, I just wanted to point this out because I meant to say this earlier. You and I got
Mhm.
connected because of one of our recent guests and friend of the show, Lucas Still. He suggested you,
Yes.
and we have a lot of respect
Yes.
for Lucas. I don't know him very well. I'm just getting to know him through social media right now, but a lot of people I
Mhm.
respect know him pretty well, and so
Mhm.
we just love what he does. So when he messaged me, he's like, "Hey, I have someone who would be an awesome guest." Like we take that stuff very seriously, and so shout out to Lucas. We appreciate the suggestion,
Mhm.
and this is kind of like lately it's been a Christian Brothers takeover because we had Lucas on. Early on, we had Kira McKechnie, who's a friend of ours on the
Okay.
show,
Yeah. I
the
coach her
softball coach.
sister
So,
currently.
see, and then now you coach for, like, I don't know what's going on here, but it's like a Christian Brothers
Yeah.
takeover. So
Yeah.
we love
Yeah.
it
A
though. It
little
must
bit.
say said something pretty good about that school, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Definitely. I love Lucas. He's awesome for that. So.
he's an awesome guy. We had a fun conversation when he was on this show. So
Mhm.
anyways, I just wanted to mention that. But so you, I mean, let me ask you this. I don't know much about the volleyball world, and you said it's
Mhm.
it's pretty rare for someone to start at 14 and then obviously do as
Mhm.
well as you did.
Yeah.
Is vol, because I know for some sports it's a little bit different where you can play in high school, but you're
Yeah.
not going to get the looks as
Yeah.
like the same looks like you would when you go to like a club team or a competitive team that's
Yeah.
outside of the school. Is that the same for
Yeah.
volleyball? Is volleyball in high school kind of it's there, but the real competition is outside of a school?
Yes, definitely. And
Okay.
it has taken a big shift,
Yeah.
even when I was in high school. So obviously at River City, it's not the same program as like a Christian Brothers, and the first thing I heard when I went into club was like, "Well, you're late, so you're gonna have to work." So
Oh man.
I was very new to that because I mean, travel soccer is a beast in its own too. You never stop. It's year round.
Right.
But club volleyball. So I coach club as well, and you see little 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds who the volleyball is pushing them over on the court. It's not necessarily them pushing the ball,
Sure.
but they're touching a volleyball and they're playing in these high level leagues already, and they're not even 10 years old yet. So by the time they get 14, 15, 16, it's just unreal how volleyball is just evolving because of how young these athletes start. And my entire career it was, well, you're late, you're going to have to do this. Well, you didn't start very early, you're going to have to do this. But there's also that whole that you dance on that line as an athlete of burnout too, right? So
Sure.
I feel like I was able to avoid burnout because I was like, yeah, I'm late, but I still want to go hit a ball against my garage outside after homework. I still want to go to clinics. And my poor mother drove me to a million clinics on every weekend, even after playing for a whole week. So I think that helped me, not burn out and want to go and play at a high level, even in college, because even in college, I wanted more competition. And so it's a tough balance, but those you get those unicorns every now and then that start at 7, 8 years old and go on and play in college and
Right.
NCAA Division 1, and they just kill it. So to answer your question, yes, club volleyball is where all the recruiting happens, and high school really depends on the program, but all of the recruiting is happening in club volleyball and in travel ball.
Interesting. That's always just even though I've known that's how it is for a little while now for some of these different sports, it's still just like such a fascinating thing to me because like when I was growing up, I've always thought it was like I'm a little bit older. I'm 33. How old am I? I don't even
Mhm.
know. 33, 34. Can't remember. But I feel like everybody was, you were recruited out of high school and then, that was kind of it. So now it just seems like it's such a different game.
Yeah,
It's interesting. But it's interesting to me, and I promise you I didn't go too far off track, but here we go. Because now these things are
yeah,
kind of coming to my mind. So you said you stopped playing soccer because you were kind of burnt out with soccer. Now, the interesting
yeah.
thing, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this because I feel like people I've talked to, when they burn out on sports, they're burning out on the competition, they're burning out on the grind of the
Hmm.
season, and it's not
Hmm.
necessarily sports related. But it sounds like for you, you went from soccer and you jumped right into another sport, so it wasn't so much the burnout and the competition side of it.
Hmm.
It's because I've never heard that before. So explain that, like what that was about, because that's just it seems foreign to me.
Yeah, so I mean, soccer for me was starting at 4 years old. I mean, we all play soccer usually,
Yeah.
at the beginning when you're kids and you do little swarm ball and just run
Right.
after a ball.
Yeah.
It's great. But by the summer between my, going into high school, so I was becoming a freshman, I played 3 sports at the high school during their summer league because I was like, oh, I get to meet people. I'll go into my freshman year knowing people from different teams, and I'll have that at least. So I was riding my bike from soccer practice to basketball practice and volleyball practice, and it was the best summer of my life. I wish I could have that summer every year now, but I was realizing the practice I was looking forward to was volleyball. And even when I was exhausted, I would go outside, and out of all the balls, I would grab the volleyball. And
Interesting. Yeah.
I remember getting ready for games for soccer, and I was dreading playing the game. Like you dread usually the practices and everything, but I was dreading the best part, which is playing. And I'm like, okay, this is not normal. Like
Yeah.
this is just not normal. So my freshman year, I didn't play for our basketball team because I tried out and made, club volleyball team. However, soccer overlapped that. So I played high school soccer and my first year of volleyball at the same time. And again, God bless my mom for, driving me to and from and feeding me on the road and, being the best mom ever.
Yeah.
But I would rather go to a 2.5 hour volleyball practice than a match for a soccer game.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, Taylor, you're going to have to, first, this is just too hard to do for 3 more years in high school. And the demand that everyone's talking about in club volleyball is you need to be focused. You have to do all this recruiting. You're behind. I kept getting that all the time. I was like, I need to, I think, just clear the decks and focus all on volleyball. And it was sad because I was pretty good at soccer and I had a lot of friends that we all played together since we were 4 in the Sacramento area. But it was the best decision for me because I had that passion now in a new game. I didn't dread games. Was now paying people to go do extra training because I loved that game so much. So it was the best decision I made. And the turning point was realizing I didn't even want to go to an actual game, which is supposed to be the fun part.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's unheard of. So that's a pretty good
Yeah.
indicator that it's time to bounce. But that's
Yeah.
interesting because sometimes I feel like as athletes, as competitors, even as coaches, right? We're all so competitive. And there
Mhm.
there is that idea that's out there. You see it all the time on social media and on YouTube, anywhere you look. There's like idea of grinding, and
Mhm.
I'm sure a lot of people in your position, a lot of students in your position that you were in, probably would have been like, I'll just suck it up and play these next 3 years because this is what I do. Like I'm not going
Yeah.
to quit. I'm just going to keep going,
Yeah.
even though it's not even really quitting. It's just redirecting your passion towards the thing that you really love. And so it's
Mhm.
awesome that you were able to realize that rather than continue to push just for the sake of pushing. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, it was very hard. I mean, I felt bad for my parents. We've been on this journey with our soccer families, forever. And, I kept hearing the same things. You're late. You're gonna have to work your butt off. If you want to go play volleyball in college, you're gonna have to work. But I was way more motivated to work towards that than I was just playing in a game I didn't like anymore. And you're 100% correct. I was very fortunate that I found something with more passion for that. A lot of kids don't find that. And then they're like, now what? So they do stay, like you say, they do stay and they don't want, to rock the boat with anyone or, their families and coaches and whatnot. But I was very, fortunate enough that I found something I loved more than, something I did my entire life. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I'm sure
Mhm.
that's something we'll kind of jump into what you're doing now with
Mhm.
mindset matters coaching. I'm sure that's something that you deal with quite a bit. And I'm sure that's something that you hear from students quite a bit where, I
Mhm.
mean, we hear it all the time from this podcast. There is the, element of, hey, I don't want to disappoint my parents. I don't want to
Yeah.
disappoint my, teammates on whatever sport that they're not as passionate about.
Yeah.
Some people just have that thing inside of them that just
Mhm.
can't quit or can't their idea of
Mhm.
quitting, right? They just have to keep going even
Yeah.
if it physically is taking a toll and mentally is taking a toll.
Mhm.
And so I mean, did any of those things kind of lead you to where you're at now with your business, or what caused you and what was the reason behind starting that?
Yeah, definitely. When I was in college and I was doing my high performance training and, going through the politics of USA volleyball was very eye opening. I was coming from a very small school. It's a small private university. I walk into this gym and there's top dogs from Nebraska, Stanford, Oregon, huge people, like just amazing athletes and huge people.
Yeah.
And at my college, I was a hitter and I am only 5'9", and these girls are 6'5" and taller, right? But in my USA
Yeah.
pipeline stuff, I was a libero. So I was that defensive specialist in a different jersey. They called me a mini when I walked into the tryout. So
Yeah.
that's some perspective there. But, the politics into that, the pressure that I felt at tryouts being a small school, you have 45-minute sessions to show everything you have. It's, having to learn how to use that pressure as not a crippling effect, but to elevate you. And because you know what you're doing. At that point, you're in college and you're a collegiate athlete, you know what you're doing, but that pressure can make you falter and can make you second guess yourself. And the background of I'm a small school, why am I here? But it was my choice to be there,
Yeah.
So that going through that and the high performance, was very eye-opening for me. But I loved the competition. I loved the environment. Playing on the USA team, when I was 21 was one of the best experiences. Putting a USA jersey on is just unreal, and just, doing that. But, I get into college, again, we're in that small school grind, so it's totally different than Division 1 school grind. However, I was able to coach at the same time that I played at Jessup. So
Really?
in the off season, I coached club volleyball. And then I, can you tell I like my plate always overfilling? But
Hey, why
in
don't you
my
say
off
yes to
season,
this podcast? Yeah.
I, yeah, I off season I was coaching, and I was training for all of my USA stuff, in addition to spring season and school. So this is my 7th year of coaching. So I was really fortunate enough to coach at the same time. So all of these things and all of these pathways are happening at the same time, of being around young athletes, learning about what they're going through, and then going through very high pressure, high anxiety moments myself in the USA pipeline, while also being a captain and trying to have, juggle roles as a collegiate athlete with being a student athlete, being a leader, all of these different things at the same time. So once I graduated, which was in 2020. I was supposed to go overseas and try and play professionally, but obviously COVID had other plans for that and other plans for the entire world. So
Sure.
that was put on hold. So then I was like, okay, now I need to stay in shape. Now I need to keep training. I can still coach. I'm still around volleyball, but now I'm not in college anymore. I'm not training with a team anymore. I need to stay in shape and try to keep my edge. So I did that. The following summer, I have a trip planned to go, and I've talked to recruiters, and it's all lined up. And with some crazy travel mysteries that happened, I never was able to go on that trip. So again, 2 years in a row, my recruiting trip is now canceled, and I'm like, okay, uh, do I keep trying to train? Do I keep trying to do these things? So I'm in this limbo. And then I started coaching at Christian Brothers. I am the assistant for the varsity team there. And that team, in addition to all my years as a club coach, taught me so much about what these young athletes go through in high school, and what they think about and what they worry about, which are things I was worried about as a collegiate athlete, but I didn't even think about when I was in high school. So
Sure.
these athletes are worried, they're stressed, they have so much anxiety. And I was like, okay, this is a problem. Like, this is something we need to try and help them as coaches. I feel like we have a very special role in helping them past just, being a parent, and even just teachers. We're with them in a very interesting setting with our teams. But how to manage their stress, how to manage their roles, how to get them in a neutral mindset, so that they aren't going to a place where it's self-crippling, and they're not going to a place where their self-doubt is making them not be able to perform. And especially somewhere like Christian Brothers, private education, there's a lot of pressure. It's tuition based. These kids are here for a reason. It's not necessarily the same things that a public school athlete is thinking about for a private school athlete.
Sure.
And after our last season, on paper, we may not have had the best talented team, but I started implementing these things, and I did journals with our team. I had an open line of communication, and I had girls giving me their journals 2 or 3 times a week by the end of season, just talking about life, just talking about how to balance being a student athlete, how to create routines, how to create success in their life, how to talk to their parents about their performance without them telling them what they need to do, while keeping them at a healthy arm's width away, so that their parents aren't overbearing. All these things that athletes go through at any age, but they never had an outlet to talk about. And we went undefeated in league. We went into round 2 in states, and that team had the best buy-in, and just was so selfless. And it was all because of just communicating and being open and talking about that. Yeah, this is very hard, and this is real life stuff, but we're going to work through it together, because these real life lessons are going to help you later in life. And it was just unreal. So I went to work after that, and came up with Mindset Matters, which is pretty much just a consulting business teaching athletes mindset tools of how to handle adversity in their different roles, how to handle performance anxiety and performance stress, and how to manage their responsibilities as an athlete and as a student, because the standard now for the student athletes is a 4.0 or higher to get into colleges. Like
Yeah.
the expectations now are so much higher than even when I was applying for colleges, and so on and so on. And so all of these is, team culture based, how to be a mentor leader, being a selfless leader, how you can train yourself to be a leader even if you are not a captain, because I'm a firm believer that you can lead wherever you go and lead in any style that is based on your character. So I try to empower them and just, tell them, hey, here are these tools. You can use them, you can make them your own, and you can take that with you past athletics, which is something I had to do when my dream was gone and I had no more control over that. These kids can now take it when they go into the real world as soon as they get out of high school. So that's, long story short, that's how we came about Mindset Matters and, coming up with those tools for them.
I love that. Everything you said was awesome. I feel like you're coming after my job as a podcaster. I feel like that was really good. More well said than I could have done it. That was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Um, where do I go? There's so many ideas and thoughts I have based on that. Just off the top of my head, I do really like what you said. It's something we've talked about on this podcast before, as far as leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And my co-host, who's off speaking at all these different schools around Sacramento, Kevin Bracey,
Mm-hmm.
always talks, when he talks to student athletes, he always says, okay, you're student athlete leaders. He always makes sure to add that leader part, because
Mm-hmm.
like you said, regardless of what your personality is, whether you're A-type personality or B-type personality, like whatever you do, there is still a group of people that is looking at you as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And you're, like you said, your
Mm-hmm.
leadership style may be different, and you may be the person at the front of the room, like raw person, or you may be the
Mm-hmm.
person that doesn't speak very much, but everybody follows your example because
Yeah.
you're consistently great at the things that you do. And so, like you said, I
Yeah.
like this idea of no student athlete has an excuse, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
No.
and that should be comfort. And for me, it's like, because I've been an introverted person despite doing a podcast. Like, as a student athlete, I was more introverted. So when I heard people say like, hey, you can still be a leader, it just looks different, that almost took a lot of
Yeah.
pressure off me, because I was thinking, okay, you have to talk
Yeah.
loud, be at the front of the room, and you
Yes.
really don't. And so you can just
Yeah.
kind of play into your strengths and really have an
Mm-hmm.
amazing impact if you're willing to
Mm-hmm.
accept that. So I
Mm-hmm.
love that you're doing all of these things to help athletes understand that, because like you said, there's a ton of pressure. I mean, even like with just social media alone, with the addition
Yeah.
of social media and what that looks like, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you have football
Mm-hmm.
players putting their huddle films out there, and then
Yeah.
now, I mean, I feel like some high schoolers get just as much criticism at the high
Yeah.
school level that a college athlete might, or a professional athlete might, just because
Yeah.
all this information is super accessible. And so
Mm-hmm.
um I mean, obviously, like you said, you were dealing with some of the social media stuff going through college, but I mean, are you just constantly learning and we have a TikTok now. I hate it. In fact, shout out to Lucas. He suggested we do it. I'm like, "Oh, okay." But
Uh,
not my favorite thing, but like I feel like you have to constantly be learning all of these different things just to
yeah.
keep up with the students. Is that a pain?
Mhm. Um, I mean, it sometimes I'm like, wow, this is a lot. I don't know how you guys like.
Yeah.
I personally do not have a TikTok because one, I know if I put it on my phone, I will waste so much time just scrolling on my phone.
Don't do that.
But
Yeah.
I know I'm trying to practice some self-control there. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a real thing. And we talk about that in one of my topics. We talk about societal pressures and that it's perpetuated through social media with trends and with, oh, I'm an athlete. That means all of my stuff needs to be athlete based. I can't be anything but the identity that is me as an athlete, and that's
True.
not necessarily true. And just like I am constantly asking my players, I'm like, all right, so what's up with this, like what are you guys doing with that? um Once my seniors graduated last year from Christian Brothers, they all followed me on Instagram, and I was like, great, now we can stay connected when they're
Yeah.
in college. And every single one of them had like thousands of followers and zero posts, and I was like thoroughly confused. So like at our banquet, I pulled them to the side. I'm like, okay, I need you to answer this question for me because I'm very confused here. all of you guys have thousands of followers and you follow a ton of people. So I know you guys are connected, but you don't post anything. You have no posts. And for someone like me, where when Instagram was introduced, we were taking pictures on our iPod touches in the mirror in our bathrooms, and it was
Yeah.
pixelated, and we were posting everything. It didn't matter what it was. We were just posting everything.
Right.
So, and now it's my generation who's like, oh, my, Instagram eats first for like when you're eating out and whatnot, right? You're just
Sure.
posting everything.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't understand. Like, why do you guys do that? And the answer I got was absolutely astounding. They were like, well, if we post something, it means that people can screenshot it and send it in group chats and talk badly about us.
Yeah. Smart.
Or, it can be sent out and it's not worth the battle.
Right.
And one part of me was like, wow, that is so sad that you don't feel like you can post just pictures of prom or pictures of you on a weekend out somewhere else because you're afraid of it being circulated in group chats and being spoken badly about. And the other part of me was like, that has so much power. There's so much power in that you will not post because of that. And that is where that social media pressure comes for sure. And it was just mind blowing to me that I appreciated them being so honest, but I was just like, wow, that is so sad to me that it has so much power over a lot of them.
Oh, yeah, no. And yeah, there's just so much. I mean, that could be a podcast in and of itself, just the
Yeah,
social
yeah,
media stuff. I talked about that a little bit the other day, but
yeah,
um yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. And all of that while you're trying to get better at your sport, right? So,
yeah, yeah,
you have to worry about, if you have a bad game,
yeah.
it doesn't matter if you post or not,
Mhm,
you might hear people talking about, oh, this person or that person on that team had a horrible game, or that, they're trash.
mhm,
Whatever it is, it's just a lot. It's a lot for sure. And it's cool that there's people like yourself and your business that is there to walk with them through it. It's
mhm,
not just based on what it sounds like. It's not just, hey, here are 5 tips on how to be a better student athlete. It sounds like this
mhm,
is, you're part of the journey, you're part of walking them through that, which is what's
mhm.
necessary. Because
Yeah,
it's easy to put, I mean, we see it all the time. You can Google it right now and you'll find all these tips, but we all know it's easier said than done a lot of times. And
yeah,
every single
absolutely.
person, and this better than anybody, every athlete that you deal with, every athlete that you coach, it's all very unique personalities. And there's really
Uh-huh.
not a cookie cutter answer to
No.
each person's problem. I mean, even us as adults, right? We have jobs, we have
Yeah,
families, all these things. Even for us, like, my problems are different than yours, and yours are different than mine. And so it's not like someone can come in and say, hey, do X, Y, and Z, and it's all good. It's like, well, that may have worked for Taylor, it doesn't work for Josh.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
So it's cool what you
yeah.
guys are doing, because I feel like it's much needed, especially in today's culture. So I love it.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
Yeah, I actually have some people too. I would love to. I need to send you their profiles. So I think you would really enjoy the
Oh
stuff that they
yeah,
post on social media. In fact, I was
yeah.
talking. I don't know if you're familiar with Cameron Dobbs. She,
Mhm,
do you know her? Yeah, she's
mhm.
yeah, she's gonna be on our podcast at some point, hopefully soon.
Nice.
She's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but a lot of just positive stuff that she puts out there too. So, and a couple others that I'll send your way that I think you would find
yeah.
interesting.
Please do.
Um,
Please do.
so, and you kind of alluded to it already, but if you had to pick, and it's like, this is going to be probably nearly impossible to actually pick one, but if you had to
Mhm.
pick one of the biggest challenges, and let's exclude social media, if you had
Okay.
to pick one of the biggest challenges that student athletes today face, what would
Mhm.
that one challenge be?
Hmm. I would say that athletics is no longer an escape for a lot of these kids. It is.
We were back. We had to take just a quick cut because we had a little coughing attack, which happens sometimes. It's happened to our friend Nikki B, who was on a couple episodes ago. And hey, it's what happens when you talk this much, right? Like when you're talking on a
Mhm.
podcast, coughing happens. So we are back though. So if you're wondering what happened, that's what happened. So we're back. So I'm gonna be honest, I forgot what you were saying. Do you remember what you were saying?
We were chatting about sports not being viewed as an outlet anymore.
Yes, yeah, that's right. The
I
biggest
think
challenge.
that's
Yeah.
yes, I think that's one of the biggest challenges with athletes right now. I was saying, in a perfect world, we would have every athlete walk into a gym and be able to let everything go and just go play. But that's just not the case anymore.
Sure.
The the performance demand and the mental demand of athletics right now with club, especially like I was just mentioning in the volleyball world. But even in whatever, situation that is, if it's in high school or club, is so high for these athletes that is they don't play for the joy anymore.
Right.
They want to do well. They want to reach that expectation. They want to make their coaches proud. They want to be the top recruit. They want to be verbally signing with a college by 16, and these expectations is just making it no longer an escape for them. It's now another outlet, and almost the main outlet of stress and anxiety. I mean, if you look to the numbers of student athlete suicides in the last 5-10 years too is just so alarming. And that's also one of the reasons I was like, okay, people need just tools. We just need tools. We don't need answers, because answers is sometimes way too hard to find, and it's different for everyone, like you said. We just need tools that young athletes can use for themselves, so that they are, one, are not feeling so overwhelmed, and two, they're not getting to a point where they're clinically depressed, where they're not getting to a point where they don't feel like they can get out of something, and they're just stuck in a mess. So I think that's the biggest challenge. They're just not using sports as an escape anymore, as a healthy outlet. It's now just another outlet that's stressing them out and spreading them thin.
Yeah. Well, and it's really interesting too, this whole idea of the suicide rate going up amongst student athletes, because
Mm-hmm.
you would, I think the consensus would, opinion would be athletes are the most confident people on campuses, right? They're the biggest, the
Yeah.
tallest, the strongest, they're the most imposing. They walk around, they have a certain presence, or they seem to. And so when you
Mm-hmm.
hear these stories of kids that, take their life because of this overwhelm, I mean, it's, you have, it's this, say it's a running back that has a D1 scholarship and just
Yeah.
has the entire world at his fingertips, and then takes his own life. And it's like, what happened? And it's, no one can
Mm-hmm.
escape those things, right? Like no one can escape those mental uh, challenges, the depression, some of those, mental health things that kind of come at a kid. And again, they're
Mm-hmm.
kids. Like sometimes you look at
Yeah.
some of these kids and they're monsters, right? Like they're huge and
Yeah.
they're athletic,
Yeah.
and you forget they're kids, but they're
Yeah.
still 14 to 18-year-old kids that are dealing with all these normal life things too, along
Yeah.
with the pressures of the sport that you're, whatever sport they're playing. And
Mm-hmm.
so it is a sad thing when it gets to that point. But again, I'm just gonna keep saying it. It's awesome that you guys are doing what you're doing to help them along that. And I like what you
Mm-hmm.
said too, as far as it's not necessarily about finding the answer, because
Mm-hmm.
again, going back to what we were saying about each person's different, each
Yeah.
answer is different, and the length of
Mm-hmm.
time that it takes from you starting that journey to getting your answer could be very
Yeah.
different. And so,
Oh yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So I think that's a lot of pressure too. I think that would add to the
So much
problem.
pressure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
why
yeah.
can't I
And
find
like,
it?
yeah, yeah. And so like at the back of all of my merch, I have your best is enough, which plays along with that. It doesn't have to be the answer today or tomorrow or the next day. As long as you're trying your best, it's always enough. And that's what I tell all my athletes. If you're doing your best effort and you are trying to implement the skills to the best of your ability, it is always going to be enough, because that's the best you can give. If you don't think it's your best, then that's why we have the next day to try your best again.
Right.
And just simply telling kids your best is enough and empowering them that your best effort is always going to be enough has shown so just helped these kids so much, just in my experience with the kids I've coached, saying in the middle of a huddle and they're down points, your best is enough, so go do your best.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's they just need to be affirmed that they are enough. I think that's what's happening with social media. We see these picture perfect people, picture perfect athletes, and all of these situations that are perfect, which is pretty much telling us I'm not enough because I'm not doing that. I'm not a good enough athlete because I'm not signed yet. I'm not a good enough wife, brother, mother, all of these things because this person's out doing all this. No, no, your best is enough because it's your best. So that's why, I think that plays perfectly with, you don't need to have answers. I don't need to have answers for you. You don't have to have answers for you. But if we're just working at our best, that's all we need.
Yeah. No, I love that. And like you said too, with athletes, especially when you're so passionate about your sport, it really it becomes a part of who you are. and it
Mhm.
very easily starts bleeding into those other areas of life. So if you have a bad play or a bad game,
Yeah.
it's not just, man, I had a bad game today. Like you said,
Yeah.
you start thinking, oh man, like am I just a bad
I suck.
person? I suck at life, right? It's not
Yeah.
just like, well, I
Yeah.
suck today at my football game or my basketball game. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I'm just not a good person. Like what? It's
Why am
like,
I even playing? I'm not
right,
an athlete. Yeah.
exactly. And it goes into every other area, and it does,
Yeah.
really affect your self-worth, which again is like
Mhm.
a whole nother
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
and I'm gonna try to stay on track as best as possible. We were
Okay.
joking before we started recording that you're like, I want to stay on track. I'm like, you're probably on the wrong podcast because I have a tough time staying on track. So,
I love it. No, I love it. I
well,
love
I've
it.
always said
Keep
too, and this is no disrespect to anybody else, but like that's always the good a sign of a good podcast too. When
yeah.
when I have to really fight to stay on track, because I feel like this is a great conversation already, and it's starting to go off into a
Mhm.
million different directions that are really valuable.
Mhm.
But again, I'm gonna try to stay focused. So
Okay.
let's if we shift a little bit
Mhm.
and because we've been kind of talking about like what the student athlete looks when they look at like inward, what they're seeing about
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
I am a huge believer in one of the reasons we started this podcast and the reason we call it Home Team Sacramento is because we believe that even if you wear a different uniform and we're competing against each other during the week on Friday nights, whatever sport you may play, we want to win. But
Yeah.
if you are a coach or an athlete that has a desire to see your athletes become better or see that your teammates become better or see your town or your school become better, then we're all a part of the same home team because we're all trying to achieve
Mhm.
the same thing. And if you're doing that and you live here in
Mhm.
Sacramento or the surrounding areas, then like you're
Yeah.
part of what we're doing here. And
Yeah.
so a big part of that though is community, whether it be your
Yes.
school or your town, whatever little small city or town you are a part of within Sacramento, you
Mhm.
know, you're an athlete and people see you a certain way. They see you wear the hoodie, they see you wear the hats and the
Mhm.
jerseys, and they're going to think
Mhm.
a certain way. And depending on how you behave and depending on how you carry that, it's either going to have a really positive impact for your program or it's going to be a
Mhm.
really negative thing. And we've seen it. I mean, we've both been in sports for a long time. We've seen it go both ways.
Yeah.
So for you, when you're mentoring student athlete leaders, how
Yeah.
much of an emphasis do you put on this idea of, hey, you're representing your school, your community, your families, like you have a lot of responsibility, which is awesome, but like how you
Yeah.
use that platform is how you use that platform is important. Like how much of an emphasis do you put on that part of their mindset?
So I use this term where I say bridge the gap, because there obviously is stigmas to athletes. Sometimes that stigma is they're not, strong students. They don't care. They're just, or in college, they're just there on scholarship. They're not actually there for the university or whatnot. And so I say, bridge the gap between you and the rest of your student body on campus. You need a support system as an athlete. So you making relationships with people who are not athletes is important for you. Same thing in your community. Bridge the gap. Go speak to some adults about who you are and what you're doing. Go speak to some athletes from other high schools or opposing high schools, after matches and just chat. Just bridge the gap,
Yeah.
because there's nothing against having that support system as just a human being. Beings crave community naturally. So it's funny to me when I see a lot of these athletes who are just so talented and gifted and they're so isolated. And I'm like, why do you isolate yourself? You have a natural drive to be in community. So you need to go find that. And it doesn't need to be the jock group. It doesn't need to be the stereotypical group. It whatever your support system needs to be, just bridge that gap and extend that effort, and then you have that support system. So I always tell them, don't be afraid to extend the effort first, because you as an athlete, with how people view you and with the presence and influence you have as an athlete, if you can extend that effort and or even be a little vulnerable and be like, hey, like, can I have lunch with you today? Can I sit with you today? Or sparking conversation with someone you normally would not, has so much power and influence. And it just keeps bridging that gap, like you said, and staying connected within community. And it leaves no athlete in isolation, and that's really the main goal. We don't want athletes in isolation, because that, when you just need a support system. So I always tell my kids, bridge the gap, whether that's with your own peers, whether that's with community, whether that's with opposing teams. In the club volleyball world, it's very small. There's like 4 clubs around Sacramento. All these girls will go play in high schools and see each other at tournaments in their high school jerseys, knowing in 3 months we're going to be on the same team in our club team. So it's like, why not extend, right? Extend that effort, have more friendships, have, more camaraderie, like you said, with the home team. I absolutely love that that's the name of your guys' podcast. And I love what you're about, because we're all trying to do the same thing. Us coaches are all trying to do the same thing. Every athlete's trying to play at the next level. So why on earth would we try to tear people down? And why wouldn't we want community in that? Because it is hard to play at the next level. You know, we see the stats all the time. 1%, right? 1% of athletes in high school go and play in college. And yet we have this expectation on kids like, well, you need to be verbally committed by 16. No, you don't. It's very hard. We need to be doing this together. We need to have a support system together, because if the one unicorn is verbally committed at 16, good for them. We are on this other path, and we need to keep working towards that. So I always tell my kids, bridge the gap. That's what I use with them.
That's awesome. I feel like
Mhm.
you should have a podcast. That's just my opinion. You're already super busy, but I'm like, this is good stuff.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
good. I'm glad my job's not on the line, because if I had a boss for this podcast, they'd be like, hey, we might have found your replacement.
Oh,
Um,
no, 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 no,
that's
no.
no, that's great. And I'm gonna say this too. And you've been around sports long enough, and hopefully you haven't had any coaches like this, but I'm sure you've seen it.
Mhm.
Like this idea of, like you said, hey, you need to have, these commitments by 16. And
Yeah,
sometimes, and hopefully no coach that listens to this, maybe a coach that does this needs to listen to this, but you know,
yeah,
I've always felt like there's certain coaches, and you've seen them out there before, that you can tell that coaching is not something they're using to change someone's life. They're
yeah.
using it and using their athletes as pawns on a massive chessboard to
Mhm.
gain more accolades, to gain, maybe advancement in their own career. And so sometimes,
Mhm.
like when they're pushing like crazy thoughts like that, it just makes you question where their intentions are. And I hate
Yeah,
seeing that, because like your
yeah,
job as a coach, yeah, you want to win. We all want to win. We're all competitive,
of
and
course. Yeah,
that's a sign of a good culture, a good program. But at the end of the day, we're teaching life lessons that these kids,
yeah.
again, kids,
Yes,
can
yes.
take with them down the road. So that way, when they have their own families, when they have their own careers, maybe when they're coaching one day, that these same life lessons are being used by them every single day in regular
Mhm.
everyday life. And so when you see a coach that's using that platform to advance themselves, it drives me crazy. So what are we
Yeah.
doing?
And you see it so much in the club level
Sure.
and the high level, because it's more on the line of the outcome and the
Mhm.
results, right? So
Right.
like coaches like that are considered transactional coaches,
Yep.
right? I need you to give me something because in return we're going to win. There's
Right.
the outcome. When there's actually transformational coaches out there where it's like, okay, if we're not winning, we're learning.
Right.
So there is no losing. If we are not winning, we get to wake up tomorrow and go get better because we learned something tonight.
Right.
And they are transforming the lives of their athletes, saying, okay, we played an opponent who may not have had great sportsmanship, but you held your head up and had great sportsmanship. That is a life lesson that you'll take on in life, because you may not like your boss one day when you're in a workplace, and they may treat you badly, but if you stay true to your character and respect them and treat them kindly, that is now a transformational lesson that you learned in a athletic setting, instead of a coach reaming their team like, why didn't you do it back? If they did it to you, you need to go do it back. That's now transactional, right? We don't want to do that. That's, jeopardizing our integrity and our character.
Yeah.
But you're spot on. There's, you know, it's almost a curse that I've been into all of this, because now when I walk around and I meet coaches and I'm in these sporting events, and I absolutely love going to different sporting events because they're all different worlds, and it's so interesting to see the different dynamics of a baseball program and a softball program and a basketball program, volleyball.
Sure.
Like it's just amazing. And even individual sports too, it's a whole other ball game. But I like sit and I watch coaches now almost more than I watch players. And I'm like, oh, it's I mean, it's a thing, but
Yeah.
I think it comes down to transactional and transformational. And it's up to us, like as coaches, and we're not perfect. We're gonna have moments where we want to win and we
Sure.
want to beat the other people. But there's this thing called self-reflection, and if we can acknowledge that and be honest with our team, they respect you more when you're honest, right?
Right.
Nothing gets through kids anymore. They see everything.
Right.
So if you can own up that, yeah, I messed up today, but I'm going to be better for you guys tomorrow. That's leading by example. So
Yeah, it's another life lesson. And yeah, like you
yeah.
said, everybody's human. Coaches make mistakes. We all make mistakes.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but I mean, I think if I'm being honest, some coaches just kind of suck, and they should be out of the game
Well,
because it's I mean you're just doing it for the wrong reasons. Like you are human, but you're not the
yeah,
best human being. So,
yeah,
anyways, not
yeah.
not the people that not the people that listen to this podcast. I
Of
know
course.
so many people that are amazing coaches that are doing it for the right reasons. I like to think that's why they listen to this, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's unfortunate for sure, but yeah, I think that's a great, like you said. Have you heard? Have you read Joe Ehrman's book, Inside Out Coaching?
Oh, inside out coaching, so good.
I was gonna say the
Yeah.
transactional transformation. I'm like,
Oh,
she's heard of
so
Joe
good.
Ehrman before. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's really good stuff. And I mean, I'm a big nerd at heart. I like to be learning something new. So if you ever have recommendations, please let me know.
Oh, I'll tell you right now. Tribes by Seth Godin.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a really small book. I have it. It's usually within arm's reach. Not tonight, but it's a really good one. It's a really short read.
Okay.
But it's just talking about this whole idea of like tribes.
Yeah.
Did you post something about that recently? Or
I did a few like a month ago about, your tribe compared to your team. Yeah.
that
But
was my
that
research. I
I
scrubbed the
haven't even
Instagram real
read
quick. Yeah,
I haven't even read that book yet. So it sounds like I may like that book.
it's a really good one. Like I said, it's a short read, so you can get through it pretty quickly. But um,
Great.
if anybody's
I'll check
listening right now and you want to toss a book out there to coach Jacky, definitely do it because it sounds like she
it. Yeah.
is willing to accept those recommendations. So hey, I know
Absolutely.
I forgot to start my timer, so I have no idea how long we've been recording. So I'm going
Okay.
to ask you just a few more questions. I apologize for that.
No,
Um,
no, no, don't apologize.
but let me ask you this. So, um, and I know it's like picking your favorite kid. We're not trying to cause any controversy, but
Yeah.
I'm always interested when coaches have, obviously you've coached so many athletes, you've been around so many athletes.
Hmm.
If you had to choose one athlete that you've coached,
Hmm.
maybe,
Hmm.
and maybe it's even a coach, maybe it's a coach you've coached with that you
Okay.
feel like if I was to say, coach, you have to choose one person who you feel is just an incredible representation of Sacramento, of our home team here in Sacramento. And if you
Mhm.
had to like say, okay, you want like the epitome of character, integrity, honor, competitiveness, this is the athlete or the coach that I would choose
Mhm.
to represent Sacramento. Who would that person be?
Mhm. Oh, I have two in my head, but
Drop them both.
okay. So they're both my CB alum girls,
Okay.
but the first one, her name is Gigi Hurley, and the other one's name is Lily Paddock. They were part of that team last year. They were two of the 9 seniors we had on our team last year, which was pretty special to have that many seniors on one team. Um, Lily Paddock went on to play sand at Boise State currently, and Gigi actually is not playing in college, but both of them were just the most selfless leaders. And when they walked in the room, people just look right to them. They're those girls. They didn't demand it. They didn't need anything back from anyone else. They always gave, and they never asked for anything in return. And it was honestly their honesty and them being so vulnerable with me that really showed me how much that like these type of mental tools really are going to be helpful for kids. They have a relationship with everyone they meet, super relational, really easygoing. They're the girls that go talk to the opponents after they lose to them, right? They're the
Wow.
girls that, when they're saying good game to other athletes, they're saying, hey, you did a phenomenal job, or hey, you freaking smashed the heck out of us, but you did great. Like they are those players that you just don't see very often. And
Yeah.
they were also the hardest working athletes in the gym. And there's not much else you can ask for. They were 4-year varsity players, but they didn't play much their first 2 years as youngins on the team, but by their senior year, um, our offense plans was pretty much set Lily and Gigi. Like
Wow.
they were the go-to girls, and they got the job done. We went undefeated in league and went on
Wow.
to, fight against the section title and into round 2 of states. And because of that leadership and because of that group, like they definitely encompass everything that, Sacramento athlete should be.
I love it. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they will too once they hear this. That's
Yeah, I'll tell them to go listen for a
yeah,
special snap.
a little shout out. Yeah,
But
I
yeah, a
like
little
that.
shout out.
Um, so just a couple more here for you. Uh, who is your favorite coach as you were growing up playing? Because like I
Mhm.
said, so many times we have these phrases, we have these ideas, these mindsets, these habits
Yeah.
that when
Yeah.
you kind of go back throughout our lives, it does
Mhm.
stem from something that coach said or something that coach did.
Mhm.
And obviously, like we said, sometimes that has a negative effect. Like I know people that never played baseball again because they had
Yeah.
one bad experience with a coach, which is so sad because I love baseball. It's my favorite sport. So to hear
Yeah.
someone have their passion crushed because of one
Mhm.
bad coach, like that
Yeah.
sucks, right? But on the flip side, and the reason why we do this is we know there's so many great coaches out there that their
Mhm.
words, their example causes that athlete not only to love that sport even more, but like I said, become better people. So
Yeah.
if you had to choose one coach, and you can choose two if you want, but if you had to choose one coach that had just a tremendous impact on your life, who would that coach
Mhm.
be?
So ironically, he was my first volleyball coach. So very fortunate that he was my first. But he was the JV coach at the high school at River City that I was at, and I didn't play up on varsity as a freshman because I was like new to volleyball still, and I was like, I'm not that good. Like I need to stay down.
Yeah.
But ironically, I would say he's the most influential because I was coming off of soccer mentality, and that's very different than volleyball mentality. So and
Yeah.
when I say that, volleyball is very close proximity, right? You're
Right.
20 to 10 feet, almost 5 feet from everyone, and including parents, including refs, including your opponents. In soccer, it's a contact sport, and it's far away, so you're not necessarily around your teammates that often unless you're all around, in one area with the ball or whatever.
Right.
But I was very intense because I was very competitive, and my body language was horrible. And it was horrible because I was mad at myself and I wanted to be better for my team. But the way it was perceived was that I was mad at my team and that I wasn't a team player. And, my intensity was hurting people.
Hmm.
And, we talked about transactional coaches. A transactional coach has been like, yeah, people need to be like TJ. You need to play hard like TJ. You need to be competitive and go after it like TJ. But this coach pulled me aside one day and was like, okay, you're a leader on this team, but this is what I'm seeing because it's hurting your teammates. And I don't think you mean to do that.
Wow.
So he sat me down and he told me, your teammates think you hate them because you're so intense.
Yeah.
Uh, they think that you don't think they're good enough. They don't feel your support. And he's like, but I know that in your heart you love your team and you just are very competitive, but they don't know you like that because you're a freshman. They don't know you like that. He's like, so let's come up with a way for you to, you know, kind of dilute the body language a little bit or find ways that you can be, a part of the team and not have such intense moments that looks like you just don't like your teammates. Because he's like, I want you to be a strong leader and you need to know this so that you can lead.
Wow.
And I have never had a coach since then talk to me about anything to those lines. It was, oh, TJ, you play pretty good when you're pissed off. I'm going to piss you off more often. And it's like,
That sounds
it's
like a
something
coach.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, that people are like, oh, that's harmless. Like, yeah, she plays so much. But, this coach took that time and sat me down, and it helped me in college. It helped me for the rest of my career in high school. And it helped me when I was playing on the USA team and didn't know anyone and had to have good body language and make sure that, I was always supportive of my teammates, even if I'm pissed at myself.
Yeah.
Right. And him just taking that time, being like, hey, I see these things, but I know who you are. So he affirmed who he knew me, but this is not what it's being perceived. Let's come up with a plan. That was the most monumental part of my career was that. was that one chat. And it's hard to
Yeah.
hear that your teammates, you're hurting your teammates, and they think that you don't like them, because I love them to death. But I'm so glad he did it, because it made me a better player, and not because of skill, because of leadership and character. And it just totally changed the trajectory of my career.
Yeah, that's an incredible example of leadership from your coach.
Yeah.
And just to take
Yeah.
take the time to do that when,
Yeah.
we get so focused on winning games and strategy and all these different
Hmm.
things, to take the time to do that and to
Yeah.
have that mentorship moment is pretty incredible. That's something that
Yeah.
every coach should learn from, for sure.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I should have asked this a while ago when I was talking about when you started your company, but what was the response like once you announced that and you started that?
So it was really funny, because when I announced it, all of my college teammates were like, "Wait, what?" I didn't think, because my undergrad in college was biology with a marine science emphasis. So I thought I was going to be saving oceans
So,
in my life, right? So,
okay,
and I was coaching because I loved it and I love volleyball. I'm in a master's now for coaching and athletic admin, so I took a complete left turn with that.
right.
But they were like, "But it makes sense that you're doing this." They're like, "Because you did all these things," and that was very nice to hear.
Yeah.
But it took off so fast, Josh. Like, it was the wildest thing. So I launched in July, and I have up to 10 clients currently.
Wow,
And
really? That's awesome.
yes, and I work with Christian Brothers Athletics with all of the teams on campus, and it's amazing. I do their leadership seminars before every season, so I get to speak with all the athletes and the captains and the coaches before all of their seasons, because we do leadership seminars before.
Really?
And
That's awesome.
yeah, and so that was amazing. And then I have a couple other. I've worked with West Campus. I will be working with McClatchy and River City. I worked with St. Mary's College, their volleyball team, a few months ago, and that was an amazing experience with a college team. Hearing from the collegiate athletes where the pressure is really on, and especially a D1,
Right.
and the response has been amazing. And just it's not, it's funny, because I how influencers, like, I have imposter syndrome.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
you hear
I'm
it all
like,
the time.
well, I'm just like, who wants to talk to me? Like, a part of me is like, I don't like, I'm just a normal person too, but I feel called to serve. So it's very nice when I hear that, like, "Hey, TJ, I tried your neutral thinking and it totally helped me when I went to a tryout." Or, "Coach TJ, like, we did this for our team culture bonding and our whole team now has buy-in and now we have no more drama problems." It's stuff like
Wow.
that I'm like, oh, just feeds my soul. So it has been an amazing, journey so far, and I'm really excited to, keep going with that and see what it looks like. And the beauty of it is it's different with every team. It's
Yeah.
different with every program. I can work within what a team needs. I can implement anything that they're struggling with. And I'm about to partner with this he'd be great for this podcast, but his name is Tommy, and he's coming up with a ACL program for injured athletes. So it's a full therapeutic and physical therapy program that he has done himself, and he has all this access for the athletes. And I will be doing the mindset training for athletes coming back from an ACL injury. So that is
Wow.
really exciting to see, where that goes. But his company name is Bridge the Gap, ironically. So
Ah, okay, okay.
he
Nice.
will be launching that soon. But it's been amazing. I could have, if someone told me a year ago that I was going to start a consulting business, I would have been like, "You're out of your mind. I'm going to be playing overseas,"
Yeah.
because that's that's how fast
Right.
things change.
Yeah.
But it's been amazing, and I just, I'm hungry to learn and to keep evolving. So I'm always open to, hear other people's opinions and what they see too.
That's awesome. I was going to suggest that you come up with, or you start like a Bridge the Gap t-shirt, but maybe not. Maybe not yet.
Yeah, I'll leave that to Tommy.
There you go. Let him do it. That's
I'll
awesome.
let him do that.
I mean, I love that. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I can keep this conversation going forever, and I'm gonna just let you know this on air, on the record. Like, this has been such a great conversation and so much great insight. Like, you messed up a little bit, because now I'm probably gonna bug you down the road for more podcasts.
No, oh
So
my gosh,
I hope
never
you're
a
ready
bug.
for
I
that,
love it.
because this will
I
happen
love it.
occasionally where it's like, I think these are great conversations. So we'll have to
Hmm.
have some more down the road if you're open to it. But
Yes,
um,
absolutely.
as we kind of wrap up here, the big question that we always leave for the end, because I think it's an important one, and it's something that we got to think about for sure as we're, in the moment. We got to think about the future as well, because I think everything we're doing right
Mhm.
now is going to affect the future of the people that we coach and the things that we do for our own lives too. So that being said, especially you being here from Sacramento and being local and being a product of our home team,
Mhm.
what, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, what do you want your legacy to be?
Mm, well, as a coach, I hope every athlete that our paths have crossed knows that I'm always in their corner. I hope every athlete knows that whoever I meet for however long, they always have someone in their corner, and I will always be there for them, as for coach to athlete. For mindset, a legacy for mindset matters. Every voice deserves to be heard, and your best is simply enough. Like that's it's so cheesy, but it's what's on the back of my merch for a reason, because it you're enough. That's it. Knowing that you are enough is enough for you to get up the next day. And it's enough for you to get through if you just lost a really intense match. It's enough for you to navigate through the stress of life and responsibilities and the changing roles that student athletes go through. And it's just every voice should be heard, and everyone's best is enough. That would be the legacy for Mindset Matters.
I love it. It's a perfect way to wrap this thing up. So if
Perfect.
people want to get in touch with you, if they want to follow everything that you're doing, if they want to buy some merch, I didn't realize you had merch. That's pretty dope.
Yeah.
So if they want to get in contact with you for any of those things, where can they follow you? Social media, website, all those things.
So I'm only on Instagram currently, but it's at
Really good for
yes,
you.
I know.
That is impressive.
I know. Lucas would shoot me if he if he knew that I was only on Instagram. But I didn't know how this was gonna go. So I was like, oh, we'll throw stuff on Instagram. We'll see. Where I think I need a website here soon. But
I think so.
um you can find me on Instagram, and the handle is at mm_, your best is enough. And there's a email link on that, so you can email me. I do private clients, I do small group clients, and I can do up to entire programs and or just teams. So whoever is interested, even just chatting with coaches, I would love to do that, if anyone wanted to chat with that. But I want to learn from people just as much as hopefully they can learn from me, so please reach out. I would love that.
Awesome. And as always, you guys can follow us at Home Team Sac on basically everything, including TikTok, which I'm not thrilled about, but we do it because we're trying to reach more people. So,
Yes.
um, Taylor, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to chat with me and to provide some insight and value to all of the coaches and athletes and parents and teachers, anyone who's
Mhm.
listening. We definitely appreciate it. And like I said, I will definitely be bugging you down the road to chat some more about different topics. So
Yes,
thank you so
please
much,
do.
and thank you for everything that you're doing for our home team here in Sacramento. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Josh.
Absolutely.